Predator. Part 1. The Arrival of the Inquisitor. The air in Blackwood Penitentiary hung thick with the scent of stale disinfectant and unspoken histories. It clung to the walls, seeped into the concrete, and settled deep within the bones of its inhabitants. It was a place where names held little meaning, and reputations were forged in the crucible of whispered legends. Here, among the forgotten and the damned, resided Elias Thorne. Or rather, the man they called the Architect. Sarah Jenkins, a journalist whose ambition burned brighter than the fluorescent lights of any newsroom, stepped into this oppressive atmosphere with a singular purpose: to unmask him. She had built her career on exposing truths, on prying open the darkest corners of human experience, and the Architect was the ultimate, tantalizing enigma. His crimes, a string of meticulously executed disappearances and unsolved murders spanning decades, had baffled law enforcement and captivated the public. Yet, despite his conviction on circumstantial evidence for a single, brutal slaying, his true identity, the full scope of his depravity, remained shrouded in mystery. He had never confessed, never boasted, never even offered a hint of remorse. He was a blank canvas of evil, and Sarah was determined to paint his portrait. Her initial inquiries were met with a wall of silence, a collective shrug from the prison staff. Guards, hardened by years of dealing with the worst of humanity, spoke of him with a peculiar blend of respect and dread. "He's quiet," one veteran officer grunted, his eyes darting nervously towards the cell block where Thorne resided. "Too quiet. Like he's always thinking, always planning." Inmates, a hierarchy of predators and prey, gave him a wide berth. They knew his moniker, whispered it with a reverence usually reserved for the most dangerous among them. "The Architect," they'd say, their voices hushed, "he builds his own world, even in here." Sarah devoured every scrap of information she could find: old case files, redacted police reports, fragmented news clippings. Each piece was a puzzle, and none of them fit together. The victims were disparate, their only common thread the chilling precision of their vanishing. No forced entry, no struggle, just a sudden, inexplicable absence. It was as if they had simply ceased to exist. The lack of a clear motive, a discernible pattern, only deepened the mystery. It was as if the killer was less interested in the act itself, and more in the perfect execution of his design. She learned of his unusual behavior within the prison walls. He was a voracious reader, devouring books on philosophy, history, and even architecture, a grim irony that solidified his nickname. He spent hours in the prison library, his gaunt frame hunched over ancient texts, his sharp eyes scanning the pages with an intensity that suggested he was not merely reading, but dissecting. He rarely interacted with other inmates, preferring the solitude of his cell or the quiet corners of the yard. When he did speak, his words were measured, precise, and often unsettlingly insightful. He had a way of cutting to the core of a person, of exposing their vulnerabilities with a single, well-placed observation. It was this unnerving intellect, this quiet power, that truly set him apart. Sarah's persistence eventually paid off. After weeks of relentless requests, the prison warden, a man weary of the media circus that often surrounded high-profile inmates, granted her an interview. It was a concession, a small victory, but Sarah knew it was just the beginning. She had gained access to the cage, but the beast within remained elusive. As she prepared for her first encounter with the Architect, a shiver of anticipation, cold and sharp, traced its way down her spine. She was about to step into the mind of a monster, and she knew, with a chilling certainty, that she might not emerge unscathed. Part 2. The Dance of Minds. The interview room was stark, a sterile box designed to strip away pretense. A thick pane of reinforced glass separated Sarah from Elias Thorne, the Architect. He sat across from her, not in the standard orange jumpsuit, but in a pressed, faded blue prison uniform, a concession to his long-standing good behavior. His hands, surprisingly delicate, rested clasped on the table, his gaze steady and unnervingly direct. There was no flicker of nervousness, no hint of the monstrous past that shadowed him. He was a man utterly at peace with himself, a fact more terrifying than any outward display of aggression. "Miss Jenkins," His voice was a low, resonant